Hi, it's Anna. Thanks for tuning in. So, in today's video, I want to discuss the importance of building a strong foundation instead of sandcastles. And, that is the core and the root of this entire path, this entire awakening and ascension path, this entire inner work journey. And this is why it is the path of most resistance. So, essentially, when you start working on yourself, when you start doing the inner work, especially when you start having an actual spiritual awakening, it's no longer enough to use coping mechanisms to cope with life. It's no longer enough to put band-aids on things. um, it's just no longer enough to dip your toe in anymore, because I actually view this path as incremental, in the sense that when you start on the journey, the beginning of the journey is just a psychological awakening, what I would call a psychological awakening, which is when you realize that you have some inner work to do because, stuff has happened in your life that made you aware. Let's just put it that way. There's been a painful experience, a painful breakup, something that shakes you a little bit out of your slumber, to make you realize, okay, like I've got work to do. For me, it was my kids mainly. I've becoming a parent. Um, but so at that point, it's probably enough to just dip your toe in, even though it's quite difficult. It's still just the beginning of it, right? You're just starting to pay attention to things, question yourself. You're starting to study what inner work even is, um, and all the different psychological tools and books and knowledge that you can find on the topic to help you, right? But my channel goes beyond that. That's why this channel is for spiritual awakenings, because when you finally get a true spiritual awakening, which actually comes from inner work, so the further you go on the path, the more you do inner work, you will trigger a spiritual awakening that will trigger a descent. And what I mean by that is that there will be a collapse where you will lose a lot of things. You will lose people, relationships. It will be extremely painful, and it's just unmistakable that this is actually the stage of the actual spiritual awakening. And this is when you start really getting to the core of things. So it's no longer enough to just dip your toe in and I'll explore this and I'll explore that. That initial stage, even though it's painful, it's also fun, right? You're like, I'm going to research attachment styles and I'm going to do this and that. And it's only the beginning, but when you finally trigger an actual spiritual awakening in yourself, um, through continuing that inner work and continuing to face yourself, it's no longer that. It's when it happens, it's just really something else and quite scary, actually. And it comes with a lot of grief, and it comes with this pain that's just so much deeper, because we're actually getting to the root. We're going to the depth of yourself. Because the entire point actually is to build a strong foundation. Um, the initial stages, or what's really popular actually nowadays, of the path of least resistance, it takes no effort, it's not work, it's just exploration, chasing peak experiences, or passive mysticism, instead of actually doing the actual work, conscious work of facing yourself, facing your shadow. It's night and day. It's the difference between Sandcastles, which is all based on chasing feeling good, chasing comfort still. So, as an example, it would mean not actually breaking up in that relationship, but doing everything around it, doing the inner work around it, so you're not facing the actual core of the issue. And it's based on the unpurified lower ego still. There's still a lot of work to do. And the problem with this stage is that it's very alluring. It feels good, you know, and this is what you find online actually, that's been popularized on social media, and that's very popular. It's this spiritual uh, illusion actually, and superficiality of what the path actually entails. And the problem with that is that it comes with a lot of spiritual bypassing, in the sense that you're not truly getting to the root of things, you're patching things up. And that's why, you know, in that sphere, it's very popular to, um, you know, to view things that everything is perception and everything's an illusion, or vilifying the emotion of anger. I've mentioned on this channel before that I'm a big fan actually of the emotion of anger. The point of anger is not to completely remove it so that we become checked out and passive. The entire point is to become a master of our emotions, to actually master and use these as fuel to fully transform ourselves. And so the issue with those sandcastles is that they crumble at the first sign of a big event in your life, or a loss, or, you know, whatever happens, something huge happening in your life, or even not just in your life, on a collective level, right? um, with so many different things happening in the collective, the sandcastle crumbles because it's not actually rooted in anything real. It's still rooted in a lot of illusion. Yes, you've probably removed a few, like some pebbles. You've done a little bit of inner work, but you haven't truly done the excavation work, getting things at the root cause of, you know, at the root of it, to build a really strong, solid foundation. And so this channel for me is all about talking about this foundation and trying to encourage people to actually do this work, because, you know, it's not sexy, it doesn't sell courses, you know, you can't make millions of dollars selling this stuff, um, because it's hard. It requires a lot of self-discipline. It requires a lot of developing a lot of spiritual grit and resilience, emotional resilience, um, and it requires slow progress. It's also a path that's actually quite slow, and it's the path of most resistance. This path is, you know, it's exhausting at times. It's the last thing you want to be doing. It's actually a lot of the times going against what feels like your biological nature, like your actual nature. Um, and you know, it's painful, and it's invisible to the outside world. You're not going to be cheered on, you're not going to be seen or validated. And so it requires building that strong inner foundation so you can fully carry yourself. Now, that being said, you're not doing it on your own. I've said it many times. You're doing it as a co-creation with your higher self, with God and the spiritual hierarchy. So there is a force also trying to help you and support you and love you in it. But what I mean by that is that there's nobody external in your life that's going to be there cheering you on, and you know, showing you proof of, like, you know, that the work that you're doing is enough. That actually has to be tapped in within, and that's the most difficult thing. That's why it's so difficult. That's why this path is so difficult. And that's why, you know, on the contrary, the other path, which is what I call the false lights, the sandcastles, is extremely popular, because we're living at a time when we're all exhausted, right? Like, when you start on this journey, you're not starting from a strong foundation. Like, you probably actually started, you're thrown on this journey because you're already exhausted. So you're seeking comfort, and you're seeking relief, and you're seeking, you know, joy, and that's the trap actually. I did a video explaining that to make sure that you stay on track and actually truly progress on this path, to make true vertical progress rather than looping horizontally and just dipping your toe in, you need to have a devotional relationship to truth. Truth has to be your highest, your North Star. That has to come ahead of comfort, validation, feeling good. It has to come ahead of all of that. Because if you make that your North Star, it will actually be that strong foundation. You will be able to navigate whatever comes, and facing yourself and feeling the pain of having to face your limitations, and having to humble yourself, and not being able to latch on spiritual bypassing or, spiritual ego. Because the problem as well is that the ego is so sneaky, the lower ego. And I'm fully convinced that there are people who truly think that they are on the path, but they've actually built a stronger lower ego instead of truly doing the transformation process that this path requires. And so that's why we're doing this. That's why it's worth it to actually do the path of most resistance, the path that requires effort, the path that requires discipline and pain. It's because nobody can take that from you. Whatever happens in the collective, whatever happens in your life, nobody will ever be able to take that away from you. This is what you are building. You feel it. It's a strong core that nobody can take away from you. And that's worth it because it's built on something that's real. Sandcastles are not built on reality. That's why they crumble at the first sign of trouble. That's why you have to be more and more skilled with the spiritual bypassing, or you have to latch on to really incorrect ways of thinking to keep your bubble standing, because that's what it is. It's just a bubble. It's not a solid foundation. That's why the sandcastles are so popular, because it's giving you the validation, or like instant gratification. You can become extremely popular. You can make a lot of money. But it's because also it's not asking you to truly face yourself and dissolve what's not true, to for the false ego to actually die within yourself. That's what we want. We want something that's real. We don't want sandcastles. And you will see eventually what I'm talking about on this path. Once you have that foundation that you feel here in your core, it's indescribable and it's worth it. And it doesn't look shiny. It doesn't look like, what's very popular, but it's so much more worth it, because what you will attract from here is actually real connections, real people who have done the real work, real relationships, real connections. And beyond this life, you will also be rewarded spiritually on the other side as well, because this is real. You take it with you. Whatever you've done, whatever work you've done and achieved and transformed here, not only then you become a vessel for the divine to work through you and to help other people, but also you take that with you on the other side. Nobody can take that away from you. And that's worth it. There is a verse in the Bible that I want to quote here. And this is from 1 Corinthians 3:11-15. For no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. If it is burnt up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. So this is very similar to, the fairy tale, the three little pigs, and who they each build a different house. One made of wood, one made of brick, and I can't remember the other one, made of hay, I think. So it's the same concept, right? It's making sure that we build something that's sustainable, that can sustain us, because we don't want to be on this path and dealing with pain forever. That's not the point. This is not supposed to be forever. We're supposed to truly do that work of purification, refinement, and really resurrection. So the lower self dies, that what's not real in us, the full self, but we actually come back to life with a capital L, because we are connected with our spirit at this point. So this is the true self. And anyone that tells you that this path is the path of least resistance and it doesn't require any work or any effort, is basically telling you to put the tools down when you haven't even built the foundation of the house that you're building within yourself. So you are building something that's real, truly transforming who you are, becoming your true self, so that your thoughts, words, and actions are fully aligned and you become fully aligned with your higher self, so that you don't even have to think about what you are saying, or you don't have to force yourself to feel any differently than you're currently feeling. That when I think about that actually sounds exhausting. You are on this path allowed to be completely genuine in how you feel and who you are, completely genuine in your humanity, because that's the foundation. And eventually you come to a place where you're living it with this core self in a state of peace that nobody can take from you, because you know how to navigate things. If things come, you will be able to navigate them, because you've built that spiritual grit, that psychological resilience. You have that foundation. I like the tree analogy. It's like becoming the tree that's firmly planted in the soil with strong foundations and strong roots that flow everywhere, so you can stay centered no matter what. Because life will happen, You have, if you are a parent, you have children, they will navigate their own problems. You need to be able to stand firm and stand strong and true, no matter what. You can't be building a sandcastle and a bubble, forcing everyone and everything to fit into your paradigm, because otherwise it will shatter what's not real. When you have that strong foundation, no matter what anyone says, you know who you are, you know yourself, you're anchored within. You cannot be swayed. And you don't need to think about things, or you don't need to, it's probably not the right way to put it, but you don't need to follow a set of external rules. It flows from within, because that's who you are. So that's the choice that we have, right? Do we stay simply dipping our toe in and building sandcastles that will not really be built on anything real? Like your relationship will not really be built on something really real and true, where you can actually reach true intimacy and connection? Or do we want to do the work that takes time, that takes effort and discipline, and having to face ourselves and do all that stuff, to build a true, real foundation that's sustainable in this life and beyond? That's a choice that we have to make for ourselves. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.